What if you could time travel across an entire state, one photograph at a time? Before New York was highways and headlines, it was forests, farms, forgotten towns, and hopes written in dust. These rare images don't just capture a place, they reveal the soul of a people carving their future across hills, rivers, and muddy roads. From the springs of Saratoga to the markets of Albany, from quiet villages to the seeds of cities, you're not just seeing New York's past, you're stepping into the heartbeat of early America. The Great Snow Hall, New York. After a brutal storm, horse-drawn wagons line up to clear Manhattan's streets. Piled high with snow, they head toward the East River, where the icy burden is cast into the water. It's organized chaos, steam, hoofbeats, and hard labor, all to make the city walkable again. After the blizzard, New York. Following one of the fiercest snowstorms in city history, workers dump tons of frozen white into the river. Horse-drawn carts tilt backward as men shovel relentlessly. In the distance, smokestacks blur into the icy haze. It's winter cleanup, 19th century style, raw, cold, and absolutely necessary for survival. East 87th Street, Manhattan. In a quiet backyard between Madison and Park Avenues, a young girl clutches a washboard and water pump. Wooden homes and makeshift sheds form the backdrop of working-class life. Her smile softens the hardship, a rare moment of innocence in a New York neighborhood still untouched by steel and stone. Buckman's Well, northern Manhattan. Long before high-rises, Buckman's Well served as a quiet lifeline between 181st and 182nd Streets. This spring offered fresh water and respite along Haven Lane, nestled near today's Riverside Drive. Surrounded by rock, wood, and stillness, it was a forgotten oasis in what would become the city's restless north. The Bronx, untamed. Long before the borough bustled with life, the Bronx was a patchwork of rivers, rocks, and quiet fields. A primitive crane stands near the water, suggesting early construction or farming efforts. This serene glimpse captures a moment before urban sprawl replaced the wild beauty of New York's northern frontier. Eastern Broadway under construction. A team of men carves a path for what would become one of Brooklyn's most iconic boulevards. Shovels in hand, surrounded by dirt and wooden planks, they laid more than just a road. They laid history. Behind them, homes watch quietly as New York's modern skeleton begins to take shape. Milk Wagon on Park Row, New York City. Crowds gather as the milk wagon makes its daily stop on Park Row. Pulled by a patient horse, it delivers fresh milk and buttermilk to a bustling newspaper district. In a time before refrigeration, this scene was essential, bringing nourishment to the city's core, one bottle and coin at a time. Handsome cab driver, New York City. Poised beside his trusted horse, this cabman waited for his next fare on cobbled streets. Dressed in wool and duty, he bridged the city's old world and new pace. With reins in hand and stories untold, he was a quiet witness to thousands of lives passing through Manhattan's heart. Herald Square, New York City. Before it became a shopping mecca, Herald Square was the pulse of Manhattan's news world. The towering New York Herald building commanded attention, surrounded by horse-drawn traffic, iron rail lines, and tidy trees. A snapshot of organized chaos, modernity rising, block by block, in America's fastest-growing city. Grand Central Hotel, New York City. Standing tall in the heart of Manhattan, the Grand Central Hotel embodied New York's Gilded Age ambition. Its ornate facade and rooftop flags reflected luxury and prestige.
Nestled beside the Southern Hotel, this corner bustled with carriages, commerce, and the unmistakable rhythm of a city on the rise.
Staten Island Ferry, New York City. In elegant hats and coats, passengers quietly read their newspapers aboard the Staten Island Ferry. Sunlight pours through tall windows, illuminating a rare moment of calm in a rapidly changing New York. This peaceful crossing captures both the grace and routine of urban life at the close of the century. Broadway, New York City. Broadway pulses with life as carriages, streetcars, and pedestrians fill the street. American flags wave above the storefronts of a rising metropolis. In this snapshot of New York's unstoppable growth, every window, wheel, and sign tells a story of commerce, ambition, and a city coming into its own. Squatters on Fifth Avenue. Before Fifth Avenue became a symbol of wealth, it held pockets of poverty like this. Makeshift shacks built from scrap wood show the harsh conditions many faced. These forgotten corners remind us that New York's glamour was built atop grit, struggle, and the resilience of invisible lives. Fifth Avenue and 118th Street. Exposed bedrock supports a growing residential block. The contrast between raw nature and modest homes behind a white fence captures a city in transition. Before concrete and skyscrapers, New York was quite literally a city rising from the stone, street by street, foundation by foundation.
Keuka Lake Vineyard Estate. Perched above the shimmering waters of Keuka Lake, this grand estate stood among the famed vineyards of New York's Finger Lakes. Even in 1894, the region's beauty was undeniable. Rolling hills, serene waters, and fruitful vines capturing the charm that continues to define one of America's most picturesque wine regions. Fourth Lake Serenity. Two steamboats approach the wooden dock on Fourth Lake, carrying passengers eager for nature's calm embrace. Surrounded by rolling hills and tranquil waters, this peaceful moment captures the timeless allure of boat rides in New York's wilderness, where silence, breeze, and scenic beauty blend into a cherished American ritual. New York City Hall. Bathed in sunlight and framed by thick trees, City Hall stands with commanding elegance. Built in 1812, this structure is one of the oldest continuously used city halls in the United States. In 1893, its symmetrical facade and lofty towers symbolized a growing city's ambition to govern a modern world. Columbus Circle. This striking view shows Columbus Circle during its early years, alive with trolleys, carriages, and a sea of pedestrians. The dense crowd gathered likely for a civic event or parade. Behind them, Central Park looms quietly. It's a rare look at how public space once brought the entire city together.
Angel over the waters. New Yorkers gather around Bethesda Fountain beneath the iconic angel sculpted by Emma Stebbins. The statue's outstretched wings and lily branch bless the tranquil lake behind her. Representing purity, health, and peace, she stands as a silent guardian while people stroll and linger at the mall's northern end. Elegance in the park. On a crisp afternoon in Central Park, New Yorkers promenade beneath leafless elms along the mall. Gentlemen in bowler hats and women in long skirts create a tableau of refinement. This scene captures the city's heartbeat, where class, calm, and community converged in nature's corridor, even before the skyline soared. Staten Island Tennis Club, St. George. Long before tennis became a television spectacle, it was a genteel pastime for the well-dressed elite. Captured here on Staten Island in the peaceful borough of St. George, these young men and women pose with wooden rackets and proud smiles, frozen in a summer that no longer exists. A stroll through Mott Street. In the heart of Manhattan's Chinatown, Mott Street captures a moment of quiet bustle. Men in bowler hats pass by storefronts with striped awnings as women and children linger on stoops. It's a rare, sunlit glimpse into daily life before the city's vertical race transformed the skyline forever. Corner of State and Broadway, Albany. This photograph captures a quiet moment on one of Albany's busiest intersections at the time, the corner of State Street and Broadway. Streetcars run calmly beneath a web of overhead wires as horse-drawn wagons share the road with early signs of modernization. These buildings once marked the pulse of New York's capital, where merchants, travelers, and politicians crossed paths daily. Before the Flatiron. Long before the iconic wedge-shaped Flatiron building redefined this corner, 23rd Street and Broadway bustled with carriages, trolleys, and crowds. The streets were alive with the rhythm of old New York, horses clattering on cobblestone, vendors calling out, and massive painted signs towering above it all. This was the city's pulse and motion, captured just before the skyline would change forever. The Dakota rises. In this photo, the Dakota apartment building stands proudly over an unfinished New York. Horse-drawn wagons cross dirt roads, and Central Park West is still raw earth and rock. This wasn't just a construction site, it was a symbol of ambition. The Dakota brought opulence uptown, marking a turning point where Manhattan's wild edge began its transformation into the city we know today. The L in Lower Manhattan, steel above the streets. Before the subways ruled New York, the city looked to the skies. The elevated railway, the L, sliced through Manhattan like a mechanical serpent, its shadow stretching over cobblestone streets and bustling crowds. It was noisy, gritty, and utterly revolutionary, lifting New York's future one iron beam at a time.
Bandits Roost, New York's forgotten alley. This wasn't just a street, it was a warning. Captured by Jakob Riis, this alley in Mulberry Bend was known not for its address, but for its reputation. The men stare back at the camera, not with fear, but familiarity. In this corner of 19th century Manhattan, danger didn't hide, it posed. The Great Blizzard of 1888, Madison Avenue. Towering walls of snow swallowed the city whole. This surreal canyon on Madison Avenue wasn't carved by time, but by storm. In March 1888, New York stood still, paralyzed by nature's fury. And yet this man stood casually against it, like winter had dared him to flinch. Building 81st Street. Massive rocks once blocked the way where 81st Street now runs. In 1886, teams of horses and brave laborers cleared the stone by hand and pulley. It was backbreaking work, dangerous, loud, and slow. Today, few imagine that every paved block in Manhattan began with scenes like this. The newspaper girl. With poise beyond her years, she stands beneath the elevated tracks, a bundle of newspapers in hand, and a flowered hat like a crown. Her smile defies the noise of the city. In an age of headlines and hardship, she became the story, grit wrapped in grace on a New York street. Statue of Liberty Assembly. Freshly arrived from France, the Statue of Liberty was assembled piece by piece in New York. This rare photo shows workers inside the massive workshop preparing the iconic torch-bearing arm. A symbol of freedom in the making, captured before it ever stood watch over the New York harbor. Where Broadway meets Amsterdam. Long before the traffic and theaters, this quiet fork was more farmland than metropolis. In 1883, the intersection of Broadway and Amsterdam Avenue was a peaceful junction where unpaved roads met open fields, a place where Manhattan still breathed like a village on the edge of change. Carnegie Hill, before the mansions, just dirt and dreams. Captured in 1882, this early view of Carnegie Hill shows empty plots and narrow roads carving through the rugged landscape. Decades before luxury townhouses defined the area,
This photo reveals a neighborhood on the brink of transformation, raw, untamed, and waiting for New York's upper crust to arrive. Adirondack cabin life. This family portrait in Johnsburg, New York, captures more than faces. It freezes resilience. Their long cabin, built by hand, stood against brutal winters and back-breaking labor. Notice the game displayed with pride and the solemn strength in their posture. This was survival in the Adirondacks, raw, quiet, and deeply American.
Farmhouse in Manhattan. It's almost unthinkable now, but this quiet farmhouse once stood where 84th Street and Broadway collide in today's Manhattan. Perched on a rocky rise, it overlooked dirt roads in open land. Long before skyscrapers and subways, this was New York, rural, rugged, and waiting for the thunder of progress. Jerome Mansion, the gilded elegance of New York. This stately corner structure once belonged to Leonard W. Jerome, grandfather of Winston Churchill. Built in an era of opulence, the mansion overlooked Madison Square Park and symbolized the rise of New York's elite. Its architecture, with ornate windows and sharp mansard roofs, reflected ambition carved into stone. Baxter Street, Manhattan. This gritty scene from Baxter Street captures the raw face of old New York. Wooden shacks clinging to the shadow of brick tenements, laundry fluttering from windows, and children dodging horses on the dusty road. Here, survival wasn't romantic. It was loud, crowded, and unfiltered, a sliver of life carved into a growing empire. New York Times Building. Before it became a global media giant, the New York Times was headquartered here, an ornate corner building buzzing with printers, editors, and ink-stained ambition. The bold signage declared a rising empire of words, while carriages passed by, unaware they were watching the birth of modern journalism unfold brick by brick.
Brooklyn Bridge begins. Seen from Manhattan, the towering stone towers of the Brooklyn Bridge rise from the East River, still incomplete but full of promise. Sailing ships anchor below as the city hums with ambition. This moment captures New York mid-transformation, between old-world charm and the bold age of steel. Wall Street, New York. A quiet Wall Street before the rush of the modern stock market. The spire of Trinity Church stands tall at the end of the street, framed by early skyscrapers and gas lamps. This photo captures a moment of calm before the financial capital of the world came to life. Going to the cane grinding, Merrick. This faded photo captures a joyful moment frozen in time. Families in Sunday best packed onto a wooden wagon, heading to a cane grinding. The horse waits patiently beneath a moss-covered tree, as if knowing it's part of a cherished ritual. It's not just a ride, it's a memory on wheels. 106th Street and 8th Avenue, Manhattan under construction. Before the skyline, there was stone. This 1869 photo captures a rugged view of northern Manhattan, where dynamite and manpower carved out the city's future. Jagged rock, makeshift huts, and early cranes tell a story of ambition. New York was being built one blasted hillside at a time.
Lincoln's funeral procession, New York City. As the nation mourned Lincoln, two small faces peered from a second-story window, 6-year-old Theodore Roosevelt and his brother Elliot. The street below was crowded with solemn figures, but history quietly paused in that window. A boy who would one day shape America, watching the man who had just saved it. High Rock Spring, Saratoga Springs. This photo captures a moment at the legendary High Rock Spring, once believed by Native Americans to hold healing powers. By the 1800s, its fame drew visitors from across the nation. Here, a man taps into its mineral waters, not just for refreshment, but for health and hope. Nature's medicine bottled by history. African Americans collecting bones of soldiers. In the silent aftermath of war, these men were tasked with an unthinkable duty, gathering the forgotten remains of fallen soldiers at Cold Harbor. Under the weight of sorrow and history, they worked not just with their hands, but with reverence. This haunting photo captures grief, duty, and quiet resilience. Church of the Holy Trinity, future site of Grand Central Terminal. Before the rush of trains and steel stood this quiet wooden chapel. The Church of the Holy Trinity occupied the very ground where Grand Central Terminal would one day rise. This photo captures a fleeting moment, humble, sacred, and soon to vanish in the name of progress.
Central Park, view from 8th Avenue. Before the trees grew tall and the paths were paved, Central Park looked like a construction site. A lone shack stands before the rising park landscape, hinting at the transformation to come. This is New York, caught between wilderness and ambition, just beginning to shape its iconic urban oasis. The 5th Avenue Hotel. Before skyscrapers ruled Manhattan, this was the city's crown jewel. The 5th Avenue Hotel stood as a beacon of luxury and innovation, one of the first buildings in New York with an elevator. Presidents stayed here, power deals happened here, and in this rare photo, you're looking at the heartbeat of elite New York. Barnum's American Museum. Long before Times Square lit up the night, this building drew crowds like a magnet. Barnum's American Museum was part circus, part classroom, and entirely unforgettable. From wax figures to the Fiji mermaid, it was New York's strangest wonderland. This photo captures it alive, just 7 years before it burned to the ground. New York City Street under construction. This striking image captures Manhattan mid-transformation. Muddy roads, scattered bricks, and horse-drawn carts share space with rising facades. It's one of the earliest street views of NYC ever photographed, freezing a moment when ambition and chaos walked hand in hand. The city wasn't yet iconic, but it was becoming unforgettable.
Manhattan's Upper West Side, the first known photo of New York City. This quiet hilltop view is more than a glimpse into Manhattan's past. It's the first known photograph ever taken of New York City. Long before the skyline rose, the Upper West Side was a tranquil mound dotted with trees and whispers of farmland. This is where the photographic memory of a great city began. Niagara Falls, the first witness of a giant. Before camera shutters became common, someone dared to aim a lens at the eternal roar of Niagara Falls. Framed by mist and silence, this is the first photograph ever captured of the site. Notice the lone figure, so small against the vastness, yet bold enough to freeze the unthinkable. Time paused here for the first time, and a legend took shape. And now, as the dust settles on these frozen memories, we remember that New York was never just a place, it was a promise. A land of contrasts and chances, of quiet barns and roaring ideas. These images, though silent, still speak. Of families who built without knowing what they were building. Of towns that dreamed bigger than their maps allowed. If these images moved you, share them. Let the echoes of early New York ripple forward. Because history isn't just about what happened. It's about who remembers.